Nice people are some of the most misunderstood people in this world. They smile easily, forgive quickly, give selflessly, and try their best to keep everyone happy. From the outside, it looks like strength. From the inside, it often feels like exhaustion. And somewhere along the way, nice people start wondering, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I always get hurt, even when my intentions are pure? The truth is, nice people don't get hurt because they are weak. They get hurt because they are open. They lead with their heart in a world that often leads with strategy. They assume others think, feel, and care the way they do. And that assumption becomes their biggest vulnerability. Nice people believe in giving people the benefit of the doubt. When someone hurts them, they say, maybe they didn't mean it. When someone disrespects them, they think they must be having a bad day. When someone repeatedly disappoints them, they hope maybe next time will be different. This hope is beautiful, but without boundaries, it becomes painful. There is a story of a kind traveler who carried water for everyone in his village. Every day he filled pots for the elderly, the sick, and even those who never thanked him. Over time, his own well began to dry up. When he asked why, an elder told him, "You have been giving water to everyone, but you forgot to refill your own well." Nice people often forget this. They give until they are empty, then wonder why they feel so tired and hurt. One reason nice people get hurt the most is because they avoid conflict. They would rather stay silent than make someone uncomfortable. They would rather adjust themselves than ask others to change. They swallow their pain with a smile, thinking it's the mature thing to do. But unspoken pain doesn't disappear, it accumulates. And one day it explodes as sadness, resentment, or emotional burnout. Nice people also struggle with saying no. They fear that saying no will make them selfish, rude, or unlovable. So they say yes even when they are tired. Yes even when it hurts. Yes even when it costs them their peace. And slowly people begin to take their kindness for granted. Not because people are always bad, but because human nature often respects boundaries more than sacrifice. There was a woman who was known for always being available. Anytime someone needed help, she showed up. But when she needed support during a difficult phase of her life, very few people were there. She felt deeply hurt and asked herself, where is everyone now? Later she realized a painful truth. She had trained people to rely on her, not to support her. Her kindness was genuine, but it was unprotected. Nice people often confuse kindness with tolerance. They tolerate disrespect in the name of understanding. They tolerate inconsistency in the name of loyalty. They tolerate emotional neglect in the name of love. But kindness does not mean allowing yourself to be mistreated. True kindness includes kindness toward yourself. Another reason nice people get hurt is because they expect fairness from life. They believe if I am good, good will come back to me. While this belief is noble, life does not always operate on immediate fairness. Sometimes good people suffer not because they deserve it, but because life is teaching them strength, discernment, and self-respect. There is a story of a soft clay pot and a hard stone pot traveling together. Whenever they hit each other, the clay pot cracked while the stone pot remained unchanged. The clay pot asked, "Why do I always get damaged?" The answer was simple. It was softer. Nice people are like that clay pot. Their softness makes them compassionate, but it also makes them more sensitive to impact. Nice people also see potential instead of patterns. They focus on who someone could be, not who they consistently are. They fall in love with intentions instead of actions. They stay because they see goodness beneath the flaws. But love without realism leads to repeated disappointment. One of the hardest lessons nice people learn is that not everyone has the same heart as them. Some people give to control, some listen to manipulate, some stay only while it benefits them. And nice people, because of their trusting nature, often realize this too late. But here is the most important truth. Being nice is not the problem. Being nice without wisdom is. There is a difference between being kind and being naive. A kind person gives, but also knows when to stop. A kind person forgives, but does not forget the lesson. A kind person loves deeply but does not abandon themselves in the process. Nice people need to learn boundaries, not as walls of bitterness, but as doors of self-respect. Boundaries are not meant to keep everyone out. They are meant to let the right people in. When nice people begin to set boundaries, something interesting happens. Some people leave, some get angry, some accuse them of changing. But what is actually happening is this. The people who benefited from their lack of boundaries feel uncomfortable. There was a man who always agreed with his colleagues to avoid conflict. One day, he respectfully said no. The reaction shocked him. People were upset, but over time they began to respect him more. His kindness didn't disappear, it became balanced with self-worth. Nice people also tend to take things personally. When someone behaves badly, they assume it's because of something they did wrong. But mature understanding teaches this truth: other people's behavior is often a reflection of their inner state, not your value. Learning this frees nice people from unnecessary guilt. It teaches them to stop carrying emotional burdens that are not theirs. Another important lesson is learning to detach without becoming cold. Detachment means caring without clinging, loving without losing yourself, helping without hurting yourself. Detachment protects the heart while allowing compassion to remain. Nice people must also learn that rest is not selfish. Saying no is not rude. Choosing peace is not weakness. And prioritizing yourself does not make you less loving. It makes you sustainable. There is a story of a candle that kept lighting other candles. Eventually it burned out completely. Another candle learned to protect its flame from the wind. That candle lasted longer and lit more candles over time. Nice people must learn to protect their flame. When nice people stop overgiving, they don't become cruel. They become clear about what they will accept, clear about what they deserve, clear about who gets access to their energy. And when this clarity arrives, the pain begins to make sense. Every hurt becomes a lesson. Every betrayal becomes a teacher. Every disappointment becomes a step toward wisdom. Nice people were never meant to become hard. They were meant to become strong and soft at the same time. Gentle in heart, firm in boundaries. One day, a nice person realizes something powerful. They are still kind, but no longer available for misuse. They still love, but no longer beg. They still care, but no longer tolerate disrespect. And that day the hurting stops, not because the world changed, but because they did. They finally learned this truth. Kindness is a gift, and not everyone deserves access to it. When nice people truly understand this, a quiet transformation begins inside them. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is gentle, yet deeply powerful. They stop explaining themselves to people who never tried to understand them. They stop proving their worth to people who were never qualified to judge it. And for the first time, they start listening to the small voice inside that says, "This doesn't feel right." Nice people often ignore that voice for years. They override it with logic, compassion, and excuses. They say, "I'm overthinking." They say, "I should be more patient." They say, "This is how relationships work." But the heart has its own intelligence. It senses disrespect long before the mind accepts it. Pain often comes not from the situation itself, but from betraying that inner voice again and again. There was a young man who always stayed quiet when his friends mocked his dreams. He laughed along, pretending it didn't hurt. He thought tolerance would eventually earn respect. One day, he stopped sharing his dreams altogether. Not because he stopped dreaming, but because he stopped feeling safe. That is how nice people get hurt. Not always through big betrayals, but through small dismissals repeated over time. Another reason nice people suffer deeply is because they love deeply. They don't love halfway. When they care, they give their time, their attention, their emotional presence. And when that love is not reciprocated with the same sincerity, the emptiness feels unbearable. It's not the loss of the person that hurts most, it's the loss of the effort they invested. Nice people also tend to remember promises more than patterns. They remember what someone said on a good day, not what they did consistently on ordinary days. They hold on to words like anchors. even when actions drift far away. This gap between words and actions becomes a silent source of their heartbreak. At some point, life gently, or sometimes harshly, forces nice people to grow. They experience a moment where their patience runs out, their energy drains, and their heart says, enough. This moment is not a failure. It is an awakening. Growth for a nice person does not mean becoming selfish. It means becoming selective. Selective with time, selective with energy, selective with emotional access. They realize that not everyone who wants a seat in their life deserves one. There is a beautiful story of a garden that welcomed everyone. People walked through it, plucked flowers, stepped on plants, and left without gratitude. The gardener felt hurt and confused. One day he built a small fence, not to keep people out, but to guide them through a proper path. The garden began to flourish again. Nice people need that fence, not to isolate themselves, but to protect what is precious. Nice people also learn that empathy without discernment becomes self-neglect. Feeling for others is a gift, but carrying others' emotional baggage is not your responsibility. You can understand someone's pain without allowing it to harm you. Another powerful shift happens when nice people stop chasing closure. They stop needing explanations from people who hurt them. They stop asking, "Why did you do this to me?" and start asking, "Why did I allow this for so long?" This question is not self-blame, it is self-awareness. When awareness arrives, forgiveness changes its meaning. Forgiveness is no longer about reopening doors. It is about closing wounds. It is about freeing your heart from carrying bitterness while still protecting it from repeated harm. Nice people also learn that distance can be a form of self-respect. And every separation is a loss. Some are protection, some are redirection, some are life quietly removing what your heart was too gentle to let go of. There was a woman who felt guilty for walking away from a draining relationship. She thought leaving meant she failed. Years later, she realized leaving was the first time she truly chose herself. That decision didn't make her less loving. It made her healthier. As nice people mature, they stop trying to be liked by everyone. They understand a simple truth. Being liked is not the same as being valued. People may like you when you agree, comply, and sacrifice, but they value you when you respect yourself. With this understanding, nice people begin to speak up, not loudly, not harshly, but honestly. They express discomfort early instead of storing resentment. They ask for clarity instead of assuming. They choose peace over people-pleasing, and something beautiful happens. The people who truly care adjust. They listen. They respect boundaries. They grow alongside you. The ones who leave were never aligned with your well-being anyway. Nice people were never meant to live in constant emotional pain. Their sensitivity is not a curse. It is a strength when guided by wisdom. Sensitivity allows depth, connection, and compassion. Wisdom ensures those gifts are not abused. In time, nice people realize that self-love is not arrogance. It is responsibility. Responsibility to protect the heart that feels so deeply. Responsibility to honor the soul that gives so generously. They stop shrinking themselves to make others comfortable. They stop apologizing for needing space. They stop feeling guilty for choosing calm over chaos. And slowly, very slowly, the pain that once defined them turns into clarity. The hurt turns into insight. The wounds turn into boundaries. They remain kind, but no longer careless with their kindness. They remain loving, but no longer self-sacrificing to the point of loss. They remain gentle, but no longer weak in the face of disrespect. This is the evolution of a nice person, not into someone hard, not into someone cold, but into someone whole. And when a nice person becomes whole, they no longer get hurt the same way because they finally learned how to protect the most valuable thing they have ever given to others so freely, their heart. And when that protection becomes natural, not forced, something even deeper changes inside a nice person. They stop waiting for permission to be themselves. They stop seeking validation for their emotions. They understand that their feelings do not need approval to be real. This realization brings a quiet confidence, one that does not shout but stands firm. Nice people often struggle with guilt when they begin to change. They wonder, am I becoming selfish? Am I losing my goodness? But goodness was never about self-destruction. True goodness includes the self. A lamp that burns without oil will go dark. In the same way, a heart that keeps giving without replenishment will eventually feel empty. There was once a teacher who always stayed late to help others, skipping meals, ignoring rest. One day he collapsed from exhaustion. When he recovered, he learned to leave on time, to eat properly, to rest. His kindness didn't disappear. It became sustainable. Nice people learn this lesson the hard way. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you are not meant to. Another reason nice people get hurt the most is because they believe effort can change everything. They believe if they try harder, love harder, understand more, tolerate more, things will improve. Effort is powerful, but it cannot replace mutual respect. You can water a plant every day, but if the soil is poisoned, it will never grow. This is one of the most painful realizations for a kind heart. Some people are not capable of meeting you where you stand. Not because you are too much, but because they are not ready. And that is not your responsibility to fix. As this understanding settles in, nice people stop chasing emotional breadcrumbs. They stop overanalyzing late replies, mixed signals, half promises. They realize clarity is a form of kindness, and confusion is often a sign to step back. They begin to appreciate solitude, not as loneliness, but as peace. For the first time, silence feels safe. Being alone feels lighter than being with people who constantly drain them. They discover that peace is not found in perfect relationships, but in honest ones. Nice people also learn to say no without long explanations. They understand that over-explaining is often a sign of fear, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being disliked. But boundaries do not need justification. A calm no is complete. There is a story of a bridge that carried everyone across a river. Over time, it cracked under the weight of too many people using it without care. Engineers didn't blame the bridge for being weak. They limited the load. Nice people must learn to limit their load too. With maturity, they stop absorbing other people's moods as their own. They stop feeling responsible for everyone's happiness. They understand that compassion does not require self-blame. You can care without carrying. Something else changes too. Nice people stop romanticizing suffering. They stop believing pain is proof of love. They stop thinking endurance equals loyalty. Love is not meant to break you. It is meant to build you. And when they finally understand this, their relationships change. They attract people who respect boundaries, who communicate clearly, who value emotional honesty. Not because they demanded it loudly, but because they modeled it quietly. Even when hurt still comes, and it sometimes does, they recover faster. They don't drown in it. They don't lose themselves in it. They acknowledge the pain, learn the lesson, and move forward with grace. Nice people never stop being kind, but their kindness becomes intentional, not automatic. They choose where to give, whom to trust, when to step back. They realize their softness is not a weakness. It is a rare strength in a hard world. But strength without wisdom invites pain. Strength with wisdom creates peace. So if you are a nice person who has been hurt many times, understand this. You were never foolish for caring. You were simply learning. Life was teaching you how to protect your heart without closing it. Your kindness does not need to disappear. Your empathy does not need to harden. Your love does not need to fade. It only needs direction. And when you finally learn that, you stop getting hurt the most. Not because the world becomes kinder, but because you become wiser. You remain gentle. You remain human. You remain kind. But now, you are also strong. And with that strength, something subtle yet powerful begins to happen inside a nice person. They stop confusing attachment with love. They realize that holding on tightly to someone who hurts them is not devotion, it is fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting again, fear of believing they deserve better. Once this fear loosens its grip, their heart finally breathes. Nice people often stay in situations far longer than they should, not because they don't see the red flags, but because they believe in potential more than reality. They see who someone could be, not who they consistently are. This hope is beautiful, but unchecked hope becomes self-betrayal. Wisdom teaches them to love reality, not promises. There is a simple story of a boat tied to a sinking ship. The boat itself is perfectly fine, but because it refuses to untie, it goes down with the ship. Nice people must learn this truth. Loyalty should never require you to drown. As this understanding deepens, they stop chasing closure from people who never gave clarity. They stop needing apologies from those who lack accountability. They understand that healing does not always come from answers. It comes from acceptance. They also learn the difference between patience and tolerance. Patience is allowing time for growth. Tolerance is allowing repeated harm. One builds relationships, the other erodes self-respect. Nice people stop calling endurance a virtue when it is actually self-neglect. Another reason nice people get hurt the most is because they listen more than they speak. They absorb stories, pain, frustrations. They become emotional homes for others while forgetting to build one for themselves. Over time, this imbalance creates exhaustion. Healing begins when they start asking themselves, who is listening to me? And when the answer is no one, they don't panic anymore. They become that listener for themselves. Through reflection, prayer, journaling, silence, they reconnect with their inner voice, the one that was drowned out by everyone else's needs. Nice people also learn that not everyone deserves access to their inner world. Trust is not given by time alone, it is earned by consistency. They stop oversharing in the hope of connection and start sharing selectively for safety. There is strength in discernment. Just because someone is curious about your life does not mean they are invested in your well-being. Just because someone asks doesn't mean you must answer. Slowly, nice people stop trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding them. They realize that explaining yourself to the wrong audience is exhausting and pointless. Peace comes from alignment, not approval. They also begin to see that saying yes all the time robs others of responsibility. When you constantly rescue, people never learn to stand. When you constantly adjust, others never learn to respect. By stepping back, you are not being unkind. You are allowing growth. A gardener does not pull a plant to make it grow faster. Growth requires space. Relationships are no different. As nice people grow, their circle may become smaller. This can feel lonely at first, but soon they realize the difference between being alone and being surrounded by people who make you feel alone. Quality always outweighs quantity. They laugh more freely again. They sleep better. Their body relaxes because it is no longer in constant emotional defense mode. Their nervous system finally rests. And perhaps the most important shift of all, they stop seeing themselves as too nice and start seeing themselves as emotionally intelligent. Kindness guided